My sister texted, "We need your apartment for the weekend," then told me to stay in a hotel while she moved 8 people into my home. So I changed the locks and live streamed her failed break-in to the family. "We need your apartment for the weekend," my sister texted at 7:42 on a Friday morning. Not asked, not could we please, not would it be okay, just need. I was standing in the back room of my beauty salon with a coffee in one hand and a box of fresh towels in the other when my phone lit up again. "My in-laws are visiting. You can stay at a hotel." I stared at the message so long the screen dimmed. "My name is Cynthia. I'm 34 years old and I own a beauty salon called Velvet Room Beauty Studio. I built it from nothing. 6 chairs, 2 manicure stations, 1 facial room, a tiny reception desk. I found secondhand and repainted myself at 2 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't afford new furniture. For years, my family treated my success like it was a group asset. My money was family money. My salon was family discount central. My apartment was extra space. So when my sister Melissa texted me like she was booking a hotel room she owned, I shouldn't have been shocked. But somehow I still was. I wiped my hands on a towel and typed back no. "My apartment is not available." 3 little dots appeared immediately, then vanished, then appeared again. Then she wrote, "Don't be dramatic. It's 2 nights." I laughed once. Not because it was funny, because my body didn't know what else to do. 2 nights. 2 nights for Melissa meant she would arrive with suitcases, food, children chargers, makeup bags, wet towels, and absolutely no intention of leaving my home the way she found it. I typed, "I'm not home this weekend." I thought that would end it. Instead, she replied, "Perfect. I'm using your key." My stomach went cold. Not because she had a key, she did, or at least she thought she did. What Melissa didn't know was that 1 week earlier, I had finally installed smart locks on my apartment door. The old key in her purse was now useless metal. And by 6:18 that evening, when she arrived with 8 people, 6 rolling suitcases, 2 duffel bags, a stroller, and the confidence of someone who had never heard the word no in her life, my front door didn't open. My camera caught everything. And yes, I live streamed it to the family group chat. Because if my family wanted to treat my home like public property, then the whole family could watch exactly what entitlement looked like when it met a locked door. Melissa and I were never close in the warm, sisterly way people imagine. She was 2 years younger than me, but somehow my parents always treated her like the baby who needed protecting while I was expected to be the extra adult in the house. When we were kids, if Melissa broke something, Mom would say, "Cynthia, why weren't you watching her?" If Melissa spent her allowance in one day and wanted mine, Dad would say, "Just share. You're better with money." If Melissa cried, everyone rushed to comfort her. If I cried, I was told I was too sensitive. By the time I was 16, I had learned the family rule. Melissa wanted, Cynthia provided. That rule followed us into adulthood. When Melissa got engaged to Brian, my parents expected me to help pay for her bridal shower because I had a business now. When she wanted professional makeup for her wedding party, she asked me to close my salon for half a day and do everyone's faces for free. When I said I could offer a discount but not free labor for 12 women, Mom called me and said, "You're really going to embarrass your sister over money." So I did it. I closed the salon, I lost a full Saturday of bookings, I bought special products, and Melissa complained that one bridesmaid's lashes looked too natural. After the wedding, it got worse. Brian came from a family that cared deeply about appearances. His mother, Linda, wore pearls to brunch and said things like, "We don't really do clutter." His father owned a small chain of hardware stores and had the posture of a man who expected every room to notice when he entered. Melissa wanted desperately to impress them. The problem was, Melissa and Brian lived in a cramped rental townhouse with peeling paint, 2 hyperdogs, and a kitchen table that always seemed to have laundry on it. I lived alone in a bright 3-bedroom apartment downtown. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't even huge, but it was mine. I bought it after 12 years of working like a machine. I did eyebrows before sunrise for nurses going on shift. I stayed late for brides. I took courses. I learned skincare. I reinvested every dollar. I ate cheat meals standing over my kitchen sink while pretending I wasn't exhausted. When the salon finally became profitable, I bought the apartment. I chose the floors. I chose the cream curtains. I chose the green velvet couch. I saved for the brass lamps. Every corner of that place represented a night I kept going when I wanted to quit. To my family, it represented convenience. The first time Melissa asked to use it, she said her air conditioning was broken and she needed somewhere clean to stay for one night. One night became 4. I came home to wine stains on my rug foundation, smeared on my bathroom hand towels, a cracked ceramic tray in the entryway, and my fridge emptied like a plague of locusts had passed through. When I asked her to replace the tray, she rolled her eyes and said, "It was probably already cracked." Mom told me, "Don't ruin your relationship with your sister over a dish." The second time, Melissa said Brian's cousins were in town and they only needed to drop their bags at my place while they explored the city. I came home to 6 people watching a movie in my living room, shoes on my coffee table, takeout containers, leaking sauce onto my counter. When I walked in, Melissa smiled and said, "Oh, good, you're here. We need more towels." The third time, she didn't even ask. She used the emergency key I had given my mother years earlier. The one that was supposed to be for actual emergencies. I got home after a 12-hour day at the salon and found Melissa sitting on my couch painting her toenails. Surprised, she said. Our power went out. I looked outside. Every house on her street had lights. When I confronted Mom about giving Melissa access, she sighed like I was the difficult one. She's your sister, Cynthia. You live alone. You have space. That phrase followed me everywhere. You live alone. You have space? As if being unmarried and child-free meant I didn't deserve privacy. As if my home was empty unless someone else was using it. As if peace wasn't a real need. The final straw came 2 weeks before the smart locks. I had just finished a bridal party at the salon. My feet were swollen. My back hurt. I smelled like setting spray and hair products. All I wanted was to shower, make tea, and fall asleep. When I opened my apartment door, I knew immediately someone had been inside. My throw blanket was folded wrong. The kitchen smelled like perfume I didn't wear. A glass sat in the sink with lipstick on the rim. Then I saw my bedroom door open. I never left my bedroom door open. My closet light was on. 3 dresses had been pulled out and thrown across my bed. One of my designer handbags, the first expensive thing I had ever bought myself after the salon, hit its first big milestone, was missing from the shelf. I called Melissa. She answered on the 4th ring, laughing in the background. Did you take my black handbag? I asked. There was a pause. Then she said, relax. I borrowed it. Borrowed. Without asking. From my bedroom, inside my locked apartment, I said very quietly, bring it back tonight. She groaned. I'm at dinner with Brian's parents. I needed something nice. Don't be weird. My hand tightened around the phone. You went into my home and took my property. God, Cynthia, you sound like a police report. Maybe I should have filed one then. Instead, I demanded the bag back the next morning. She returned it with a scratch on the clasp and a receipt inside from a restaurant I couldn't afford to eat at when I was her age. When I told Mom, she said, at least she brought it back. That was the moment I started making calls. Not to family, to a locksmith. The smart lock system was installed the following Tuesday. New keypad, new deadbolt doorbell camera with audio interior chain lock upgraded. Old keys disabled. Building management notified that nobody but me had permission to access my unit. I changed my alarm code too. I didn't announce it. I didn't explain it. I simply decided that my home was done being a community center for people who didn't respect me. 3 days later, Melissa texted me about the weekend. We need your apartment for the weekend. I read it again after she sent perfect. I'm using your key. There was something almost impressive about the entitlement. Not, can I not? Would it be okay? Not, I know I should have asked earlier. Just, I'm taking your home and you can pay for a hotel. I typed Melissa. I said no. She responded with a laughing emoji. Then, you're always like this before you calm down. I didn't answer. At 8:05, Mom called. I let it ring. At 8:07, Dad called. I let it ring. At 8:10, the family group chat started. Mom, Cynthia, please don't start drama. Melissa's in-laws are important. Dad, it's one weekend. Be reasonable. Aunt Carol, you have such a beautiful place. It would be selfish not to share. Melissa, she's just being controlling. I already told Linda we could stay there. There it was. The real reason. She had already promised my apartment to her mother-in-law, probably described the view, probably bragged about the guest rooms, probably made it sound like she had arranged everything because she was generous and capable and connected. I stared at the messages while one of my stylists, Tasha, came into the back room and stopped. You okay? She asked. I looked up. My sister just informed me she's moving 8 people into my apartment this weekend. Tasha blinked. Is she insane? I almost hugged her for saying what no one in my family ever would. I spent the rest of the day working. Hair color, brow lamination, a facial consultation, a bride crying because her trial makeup finally made her feel beautiful. Real problems, real people. People who booked appointments, paid deposits, and said thank you. Every so often, my phone buzzed. Melissa will be there around 6. Mom, please don't embarrass your sister. Dad, family helps family. Melissa, also make sure there are clean sheets on both beds. I didn't respond. At 5:51 p.m., I was still at the salon sitting in my office with the door closed. My last client had left. The front lights were dimmed. Outside the street was turning gold with sunset. My phone pinged. Motion detected at front door. I opened the camera app, and there they were. Melissa stood in my hallway wearing white jeans, oversized sunglasses pushed on top of her head, and a smile that said she believed the world owed her cooperation. Beside her was Brian holding 2 suitcases and looking nervous. Behind them stood Linda and Paul, his parents, both dressed like they were checking into a luxury hotel. There was Brian's brother Ethan with a backpack slung over one shoulder. Ethan's girlfriend Kayla filming something on her phone. Brian's grandmother, tiny and stern, gripping the handle of a floral suitcase. And Aunt Denise, Linda's sister, holding a travel pillow and looking confused. 8 people. 8. In my hallway with luggage, Melissa leaned toward the door and said brightly, "Here we are." Then she took out her key, my old key. She slid it into the lock. It didn't go in all the way. She frowned, tried again, jiggled it, pulled it out, looked at it, tried again, harder. The smart lock sat there silent and smug. I watched from my salon office, my coffee going cold beside me. Melissa laughed awkwardly. That's weird. Brian shifted the suitcases. Are you sure that's the right key? Yes, Brian, I'm sure. I've used it before. Linda's expression changed subtly, but I saw it, that little flicker of confusion. You've used it before? She asked. Melissa ignored her and knocked. Not a polite knock. 3 sharp bangs. Cynthia, she called. I was not home exactly as I had said. She pulled out her phone and called me. I watched her name flash on my screen. I declined. She called again. Declined. Then the family chat exploded. Melissa, your lock is broken. Mom, Cynthia, answer your sister. Dad, open the door remotely if you can. Aunt Carol, this is childish. I looked at the camera feed again. Melissa was now trying to force the old key so hard, I worried she might snap it inside the deadbolt. That was when I pressed screen record. Then I opened the family group chat and sent a link to the live camera feed. Under it, I typed, since everyone believes I should hand over my home without consent, you can watch what happens when someone tries to enter a locked apartment after being told no. For about 10 seconds, nobody wrote anything. On camera, Melissa's phone buzzed. She looked down. Her face changed. The confidence drained first, then the anger arrived. She looked directly at the camera. You have got to be kidding me, she hissed. Brian looked up too. There's a camera. Melissa's smile snapped back into place, but it was too tight. Oh my God, she said loudly, clearly performing now. Cynthia opened the door. This is ridiculous. I typed in the group chat. I'm not opening the door. I told her no this morning. Mom replied instantly. You are humiliating your sister. I wrote no. She is standing outside my apartment with 8 people after telling me I could stay at a hotel. Aunt Carol, private family matters shouldn't be broadcast. I wrote then maybe private family members shouldn't try to break into my home. That word did something. Break in. On camera, Linda turned sharply toward Melissa. She didn't know we were coming. Melissa's mouth opened closed, then opened again. She knew, she said. She's just being difficult. Brian stared at her. Mel, what? She snapped. You said Cynthia offered. The hallway went silent. I leaned closer to my phone. There it was. The crack. Melissa had not told them the truth. She had not said my sister said no, but I have a key. She had told them I offered. She had made me the invisible host of a weekend I never agreed to. Linda's face hardened. Melissa. Melissa laughed again, higher this time. It's fine. She does this. She likes control. She'll open it. Then she bent toward the camera and said, Cynthia, stop being bitter because some of us have families. My chest went still. Not hot, not shaking. Still, because there it was again. The old family belief. I lived alone, so I didn't count. No husband, no kids, no right to privacy, no right to rest, no right to say no. I typed nothing. Instead, I sent 3 screenshots into the family chat. The first was Melissa's message. We need your apartment for the weekend. My in-laws are visiting. You can stay at a hotel. The second was my reply. No, my apartment is not available. The third was her response. Perfect. I'm using your key. No commentary, just proof. The chat went quiet. Then my cousin Naomi, who almost never spoke in family drama, wrote, wait. She literally said no. Aunt Carol stopped typing. Mom called me again. I declined again. On camera, Melissa was scrolling furiously through her phone, probably watching the family turn from audience to witnesses. Brian set the suitcases down. You told me she was excited to host us, he said. Melissa whispered something I couldn't hear. The camera caught Brian's reply clearly. No, don't lower your voice now. Linda looked mortified. We never would have come if we knew she hadn't agreed. That sentence landed harder than I expected, because a stranger understood consent faster than my own mother did. Melissa suddenly turned toward the camera again. You're really going to leave Grandma in a hallway? Brian's grandmother, to her credit, said, don't use me. I asked if this was arranged. I almost smiled. Then Dad wrote in the chat, Cynthia, enough. Open the door and discuss this later. I replied, no. He wrote, you're making the family look bad. I wrote, Melissa made the family look bad when she arrived with luggage at a home she was denied permission to enter. Then I sent more proof. Photos from the last time she stayed. The wine stain, the cracked tray, the scratched handbag clasp, a screenshot of her admitting she borrowed it, a receipt for the smart lock installation. Then one final message. The old key stopped working because none of you were supposed to have it anymore. That was when Mom finally stopped pretending this was about hospitality. She wrote, you changed the locks and didn't tell us. I stared at that message. Not, why did you feel unsafe? Not what happened. Not maybe we crossed a line. Just outrage that their access had been removed. I replied, yes. Mom, what if there was an emergency? Me. Then you call emergency services. You don't send Melissa with luggage. On camera. Melissa started knocking again. Open the door, she shouted. You are acting insane. The sound echoed down the hallway. A neighbor's door opened slightly. I cringed, not from embarrassment, from the old instinct to fix the discomfort Melissa created, but I didn't move. Then my building concierge appeared on the camera feed. Mr. Alvarez was a calm man in his 60s who had once helped me carry a broken plant pot to the trash after I dropped it in the lobby. He approached slowly, hands folded in front of him. Good evening, he said. Is everything all right here? Melissa spun toward him. Yes, my sister lives here. The lock isn't working. Mr. Alvarez looked at the suitcases, then at the camera, then back at Melissa. Miss Cynthia informed management last week that no one else is authorized to access this unit. Melissa froze. Brian closed his eyes. Linda put a hand to her necklace. Mr. Alvarez continued polite but firm. You'll need to leave the hallway. Guests cannot block residential access. Melissa pointed at the door. I am her sister. Yes, he said. And you are not on the access list. I could have kissed that man on the forehead. Melissa grabbed her phone and finally sent me a direct voice message. I didn't open it. She sent another, then another. In the family chat, she wrote, "You're dead to me." Naomi replied, "Because she won't let you break into her apartment." That was the first time anyone in my family had defended me in real time. Melissa saw it. Her face twisted. "You all think this is funny," she shouted at the camera. "She's doing this because she's jealous. She has this fancy apartment and salon and acts like she's better than us." I finally unmuted the camera microphone from my end. My voice came through the little speaker by the door, calm and clear. "Melissa." Everyone froze. She looked at the camera. I said, "I am not jealous of you. I am tired of being used by you." Her mouth parted. I kept going. "I told you no. You came anyway. You lied to your in-laws. You tried to use an old emergency key. You brought 8 people to my home and told me to stay in a hotel. That is not family. That is entitlement." Nobody moved. Even Mr. Alvarez stood still. Melissa's eyes filled with angry tears. "You're embarrassing me." "No," I said. "I'm refusing to rescue you from a lie you told." Brian slowly picked up one suitcase. "Let's go," he said. Melissa whipped around. "Are you serious?" "Yes," he said. "I'm not standing in a hallway while you yell at a camera." Linda looked toward the doorbell and said, "Cynthia, I'm very sorry. We were told this was arranged." I believed her, and somehow that made me sadder. Because Melissa had not just used me. She had used them too. The group began gathering the luggage. The hallway looked like an airport terminal after a canceled flight. Melissa refused to move. She stood there with her arms crossed, glaring at my camera, like hatred alone could unlock the door. Mr. Alvarez said softly, "Ma'am." She snatched her suitcase handle so hard it tipped sideways. Then she said the sentence that made everything crystal clear. This was supposed to make me look good. The camera caught it perfectly. The family chat saw it. The in-laws heard it. Brian heard it, and I heard it from my salon office sitting in the quiet glow of my phone screen. Not we needed help, not we had nowhere to go, not I'm sorry. This was supposed to make me look good. My apartment had been a prop. My labor had been a prop. My success had been a costume Melissa wanted to wear in front of people she was desperate to impress. And I was supposed to disappear to a hotel so she could play hostess in a life I built. They left 6 minutes later. Melissa was the last one to walk away. Before she turned the corner, she leaned close to the camera and whispered, "You'll regret this." I saved the clip, not because I planned to use it, because I had learned never to rely on my family's memory of events. By 9 o'clock that night, the calls had become relentless. Mom left a voicemail saying I had traumatized everyone. Dad texted, "You proved your point. Now apologize." Aunt Carol wrote a long message about how public humiliation was never acceptable. I replied to Aunt Carol with one sentence. "Neither is entering someone's home after they said no." She didn't respond. Brian sent me a text around 10 o'clock. "Cynthia, I'm sorry. I didn't know. My parents didn't know either. Melissa told us you offered your place because you'd be away. We're at a hotel. I'll make sure no one contacts you tonight." I read that message 3 times. Then I wrote back, "Thank you for telling me. I hope your family is okay." He replied, "They're embarrassed, but okay. I'm sorry she put you in that position." It was strange receiving an apology from the person least responsible. The people who owed me one were busy composing speeches about how I had gone too far. The next morning, I woke up to 73 unread messages. I made coffee. I sat on my green velvet couch. The couch Melissa had once said was too fancy for just one person. For the first time in years, I felt the silence of my apartment as something sacred. Not empty, not wasted. Mine. I opened the family chat. Mom had written paragraphs overnight. She said Melissa cried all night. She said Brian was angry. She said Linda was judgmental. She said I had humiliated my sister at a delicate time in her marriage. Then came the sentence I had heard in different forms my entire life. "You should have just opened the door and dealt with it later." I typed slowly. "No." That is what I have always done. I have absorbed the disrespect privately, so Melissa can avoid consequences publicly. I'm not doing that anymore. Dad replied, "You sound cold." I wrote, "I sound finished." Then I sent one final message to the group, effective immediately. "No one in this family has access to my apartment. No one gets free salon services. No one borrows my clothes bags, products, or car. If you book at my salon, you pay the same deposit as every client. If you show up at my home without permission, building security will remove you. I am not discussing this again." Mom sent a shocked emoji. Aunt Carol wrote, "That's extreme." Naomi wrote, "Honestly, it's overdue." That started a second war, not between me and Melissa, between the people who had watched the pattern for years and the people who benefited from it. My cousin Naomi admitted Melissa had once told her Cynthia acts independent, but she always caves. My uncle said he thought everyone knew Melissa was using me too much. Aunt Carol said this was not the time. Naomi replied, "It's been the time for 10 years. I didn't participate. I had said enough." At the salon that week, I expected to feel shaky. Instead, I felt focused. On Monday morning, I arrived early and found Tasha already setting up towels. She looked at me and said, "So did the hotel guests survive?" I burst out laughing. Not a polite laugh, a real one. The kind that loosens something in your chest. By noon, 3 relatives had called the salon trying to get me to talk sense. My receptionist, Maya, handled them like a queen. "Velvet Room Beauty Studio is for appointments only," she said. "Personal calls can be directed to Cynthia's personal phone." Then she blocked the numbers from the salon line. When I thanked her, she shrugged. "You pay us on time and bring good coffee. We protect you." That sentence almost made me cry because family had spent years telling me love meant unlimited access. My employees, my friends, even my clients understood boundaries better than the people who raised me. The fallout in Melissa's life was immediate. Brian stayed at a hotel with his family that weekend, but Melissa spent most of it arguing with him. Linda apparently asked Brian in front of everyone why his wife thought it was acceptable to lie about someone else's home. Paul paid for the hotel rooms and told Melissa very calmly that honesty was cheaper than embarrassment. Brian didn't leave her, not then, but something shifted. A week later, Melissa texted me. Not an apology, of course not. She wrote, "I hope you're happy. Brian's parents think I'm a liar." I replied, "You lied." She wrote, "You didn't have to expose me." I wrote, "You exposed yourself at my door." She didn't answer for 2 days. Then she sent, "Are you really choosing a lock over your sister?" I looked around my apartment before answering. At the couch I paid for at the kitchen. I cleaned at the bedroom. No one could enter without permission. At the door that finally stayed closed. Then I typed, "I'm choosing my peace over your entitlement." She blocked me, for a while anyway. Mom tried a different approach. She came to the salon one Thursday afternoon without an appointment. I was finishing a consultation when Maya stepped into the room and said quietly, "Your mother is here." I knew from her tone this was not a casual visit. Mom stood near the reception desk in a beige cardigan, clutching her purse like she was about to deliver terrible news. The old me would have rushed to her. The old me would have apologized for making things uncomfortable. The old me would have taken her into my office, closed the door, and let her explain why Melissa's feelings mattered more than my boundaries. Instead, I said, "Hi, Mom. I have 12 minutes before my next client." Her face tightened. "So I get a time limit now. You came to my workplace without asking." I said, "So yes." She looked around, offended by the very professionalism of the place I had built. "I don't recognize you anymore." I wanted to say, "That's because you never really looked." Instead, I waited. Mom sighed. Melissa made a mistake. She made a series of decisions. She was under pressure. So was I when you all pressured me to leave my own apartment. Mom's eyes flashed. "You could have handled it privately." I tried. I said no privately. She ignored it publicly. "She's your sister. And I'm your daughter." That stopped her. For a moment, just one, I saw something flicker across her face. Not guilt exactly, but discomfort. Like she had stepped too close to a truth she did not want to touch. Then she recovered. "You've always been so hard," she said. I nodded slowly. "No, Mom. I became hard where you kept asking me to be soft for people who kept hurting me." She had no answer. My next client arrived then, a sweet older woman named Mrs. Alvarez, the concierge's wife, who gave my mother one polite glance and then smiled at me. "Ready when you are, Cynthia." I looked at Mom. "I have to work." She left without hugging me. I thought it would break my heart. It didn't. It just confirmed what I already knew. Peace does not always arrive as joy. Sometimes it arrives as the absence of panic, the absence of explaining, the absence of bracing yourself every time your phone lights up. In the weeks that followed, my life became quieter. Not perfect quiet. Melissa unblocked me twice to send dramatic messages, then blocked me again when I didn't chase her. Dad sent one text that said, "Pride will cost you family." I replied, "Disrespect already did." Aunt Carol posted vague quotes online about forgiveness. Naomi sent me a private message saying I wish I'd spoken up sooner. I told her, "You spoke up when it mattered." Brian texted once more to say he had replaced the small scratch Melissa's suitcase made on the hallway wall and apologized again. I told him I appreciated it, then I left it there. No gossip, no revenge tour, no need to keep proving my case. The footage existed. The screenshots existed. But more importantly, the boundary existed. One Sunday morning, about a month later, I woke up without an alarm. Sunlight spilled through the cream curtains. My apartment smelled like coffee and the lavender candle I only burned when I was home alone. I made pancakes badly because I am excellent at brow shaping and terrible at breakfast foods. I ate them anyway, on my own plate at my own table in my own home. No suitcases in the hallway, no sister rifling through my closet, no mother telling me to be reasonable, no one deciding my space mattered less because I had worked hard enough to make it beautiful. Later that day, I hosted people at my apartment for the first time since the incident. Not family, friends. Tasha came with wine, Maya brought flowers. Naomi came too nervous at first, holding a small cake from a bakery near her office. We laughed in my kitchen. We sat on the green couch. Nobody opened doors without asking. Nobody went into my bedroom. Nobody treated my home like a showroom they were entitled to tour. At one point, Tasha raised her glass and said, "To lock doors." Maya added, and smart women. Naomi looked at me and said softly, and finally being done. That was the toast that stayed with me, because that was what the smart lock really represented. Not technology, not punishment, not revenge, a finish line. The end of explaining why I deserved basic respect. The end of handing over pieces of my life so no one would call me selfish. The end of confusing access with love. For years, I thought being a good daughter and a good sister meant staying available. Available to help. Available to lend. Available to forgive. Available to disappear when someone else wanted the spotlight. But love that requires you to give up your home, your peace, and your dignity is not love. It is a system. And systems do not change because you ask nicely. Sometimes they change because the door finally does not open. Melissa wanted my apartment for the weekend. She wanted my bed, my towels, my view, my refrigerator, my labor, my silence. She wanted me to check into a hotel so she could check into my life and pretend it belonged to her. Instead, she got a hallway, a useless key, and an audience. And I got something better than revenge. I got my home back. I got my peace back. I got myself back. Now when my door locks behind me, I don't hear guilt. I hear freedom.